Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel Med Edophilia. In today's video, let's discuss about the cardiac cycle. So as the definition goes, it is a sequence of events, a series of events that gets repeated cyclically occurring in the heart. So you can understand this entire cycle as three stages. First one being joint diastole. Joint diastole. So, what do you understand by this term? Joint meaning all the chambers, diastole meaning it is in a relaxed state. So, all the chambers are in a relaxed state. So, blood is flowing into the chambers. So, blood from the pulmonary veins flow into the left atrium and blood from the vena cava flows into the right atrium, which then moves into the left ventricle and right ventricle respectively. So simply what does this mean? This means that all the chambers are in a relaxed state. The atria is relaxed, the ventricles are also in a relaxed state. So atria is relaxed, which means it is receiving blood. So the right atrium receives blood from vena cava, from all the parts of the body, isn't it? And from the right atrium, since the ventricle is also relaxed, passively the blood will flow into the right ventricle as well. Similarly, blood from the pulmonary veins will flow into the left atrium and then it will flow into the left ventricles, which are also in the relaxed state. So in this process, the ventricles get filled by 70%. That is 70% passive filling of ventricles occurs in the joint diastole. So while discussing about any phase, we should know the state of valves, whether they are open or closed. So in this process, both the tricuspid and the bicuspid valves are open. Okay, that is why the flow of blood from atria to ventricles is happening. So this is a passive filling phase. But the semilunar valves are closed. That is the aortic valve and the pulmonary valve are closed. And that is why from the ventricles the blood does not go into the aorta or into the pulmonary trunk. So it remains in the ventricle. So joint diastole is a stage of filling. It is a stage in which all the chambers are relaxed. The AV valves, the atrioventricular valves are open and the SL valves, the semilunar valves are closed. Moving on to the next stage, which is atrial systole. The atria are contracting. This contraction of the atria is brought about by the SA node that generates action potential. So both the atria will contract. Remember, simultaneously. So as a result, the flow of blood into the ventricles increases. So already in joint diastole it was 70% filling that occurs passively. Because of atrial contraction, the flow to ventricles increases further by an additional 30%. So joint diastole as well as atrial systole together gives us the information of how the ventricles are getting filled, 70% passively and 30% actively due to the contraction of atria. Now moving on to the next phase of cardiac cycle, which is ventricular systole. So just by the name we understand that the ventricles are contracting and the blood from the ventricles will enter into the major vessels. So what are the major vessels? From the left ventricle the blood flows into the aorta, and from the right ventricle the blood flows into the pulmonary trunk. So the semilunar valves are open and the AV valves are closed to prevent backflow of blood from the ventricles back into the atria. So during atrial systole, we saw that it was the SA node that was generating the action potential. As a result, both the atria underwent contraction simultaneously. Now, from the SA node, it is conducted. The action potential is conducted now to the ventricles, and then by the AV bundle, and then to the His bundle of His through the entire mass of ventricle. So this is why ventricles contract. So always remember, whenever a muscle contracts, there is there is generation first, and then there is transmission of action potential in the muscle tissue. So heart has a unique ability of excitability, conductivity, contractility and autorhythmicity. So note that whenever atria undergoes contraction, the ventricles are undergoing relaxation. Similarly, when ventricle undergoes systole contraction, the atria undergoes relaxation. And one more thing that you should remember is whenever we say ventricles are contracting, this means that the pressure is very high when the ventricular pressure increases. Okay, and that is why according to Boyle's law, pressure increase inversely proportional to volume. So its volume decreases as it contracts. So it is pushing its blood into the major blood vessels. So this is in short the three stages of cardiac cycle. So what happens in the next cycle? The ventricles now will relax because previously it was undergoing ventricular systole when ventricles were in a contracted state. So now the ventricles will relax and undergo ventricular diastole. So what did I tell you? Whenever ventricle undergoes systole, its pressure increases. Now here ventricles undergo diastole, which means the ventricular pressure falls. So as its ventricular pressure falls, the volume will slowly start to increase, which means it is receiving blood from the atria, isn't it? So now the semilunar valves will close, okay, preventing black flow into the ventricles, and AV valves start to open, and as a result the pressure in the atria increases, okay, since the veins will start to empty the blood into the atria, because now it receives from all the parts of the body and will open into the right atrium, isn't it? So and similarly from the pulmonary veins as well, from the left atrium. So what happens? Pressure inside the atria increases because of excess of blood that is being pumped into the atria. Okay, so blood will start to move from the atria into the ventricles. So again joint diastole occurs. All the ventricles and the atria come to a relaxed state, and again an action potential is generated by the SA node. So both the atria will contract simultaneously. So this is what we call it as atrial systole. So again the valves will open and now ventricular systole will occur. And then the next cycle occurs. So that is why we said the sequence, it is a sequence of events that gets repeated within the heart. Let's see how long does each of these phases occur. So atrial systole is the shortest. It occurs only for 0.1 seconds, and ventricular systole lasts for 0.3 seconds. Joint diastole lasts for 0.4 seconds. So adding all these we get 0.8 seconds, right? Which is the duration of cardiac cycle. So these are important to be remembered. 0.1 second is atrial systole, 0.3 second is ventricular systole, and joint diastole is 0.4 seconds. So I just want to discuss about few terms from which numericals might be asked. So first one is end diastolic volume. So end diastolic volume, you can understand it by the name itself. It is the amount of volume that remains at the end of diastole. So this is approximately 140 ml. Next is end systolic volume. As the name suggests, it is the amount of blood that remains by the end of systole, which is about 70 ml. So what is stroke volume? So stroke volume is nothing but end diastolic volume minus end systolic volume. So during each cardiac cycle, each ventricle pumps about 70 ml of blood. This is known as stroke volume. Okay. So stroke volume is the volume pumped by each ventricle during a cardiac cycle, or you can say each heartbeat. So we all know heart beats for 72 times per minute, so which means that many cardiac cycles are performed per minute. So 72 cardiac cycles are being performed per minute. So we all know body has the ability to alter the heart rate. Similarly, body has the ability to alter the stroke volume as well. Okay, so another volume that you should know is cardiac output. So cardiac output is the volume pumped by each ventricle. So again, same as stroke volume, this is the volume pumped by each ventricle per minute. Alright, so the difference is cardiac output is nothing but stroke volume times the heart rate, heartbeat. Okay, whereas stroke volume is the volume of blood pumped by each ventricle in one heartbeat. Per heartbeat is known as stroke volume. So understand the definition, understand the difference between stroke volume and cardiac output. Cardiac output is stroke volume times heart rate. This is approximately so normal stroke volume, we know it is 70 ml. Normal heart rate 72 times per minute, which gives us 500 ml approximately, which is 5 liters in a healthy individual. So since stroke volume also can be altered and cardiac rate, heart rate can also be altered by an individual, cardiac output also can be altered. So body has the ability to alter the cardiac output as well. So that is why an athlete has a higher cardiac output than an ordinary man. And the last thing is about ejection fraction. Ejection fraction is the fraction of stroke volume and end diastolic volume. So it is stroke volume by end diastolic volume into 100. The normal value of ejection fraction is 60%. Okay, so ejection fraction, as the name suggests, it is the volume that is ejected. So volume of or the percentage of the ventricular end diastolic volume which is ejected with each stroke volume. This is known as ejection fraction. So this is it regarding cardiac cycle and the important volumes that you should know. Thank you so much for watching. Support us for more.